Buongiorno. Can you hear me? Yeah. So I have 6 minutes, and I'm going to give you the 20-year history of the World Congress of Families. So we're going to go really quickly, but I do want to give the context for what is happening over the weekend, which is also providing us the opportunity to come together. So the context for the World Congress of Family was the 1990s. In the United States is when conservatives, both white evangelicals, Catholics, and Mormons, were starting to cohese around the issue of social issues like abortion and gay rights. This was also the same time where John Paul II issued a mandate that it was important to start influencing international policy and international relations. And it's also the time, it's 1994, 95, when you have Cairo and Beijing, where you start having international bodies referencing sexual and reproductive rights and gender. So 1995 is when the World Congress of Family first starts percolating. It's a US initiative, and they work with the Russians, and they start this idea of the family and how to protect it. And that's also the same year that the Vatican issues guidelines on gender, and less well known is the Mormon Proclamation of the Family, which starts challenging the idea of gender as a social construct. So this is the 90s. All the issues that are percolating right now around so-called gender ideology really started both with the Catholic Church, but with the Mormons, and that's an important consideration because that's really the genesis of where the World Congress of Family starts. And so Alan Carlson is actually a Lutheran, and he pulls together this initiative, the World Congress of Families, and the idea is that he wants to pull together the newly freed Eastern Europe and Russia and link it closer to the West. And specifically, they were afraid that the program of action that came out of Cairo and Beijing would influence domestic policy. So they were really looking at the international arena. They start organizing really vigorously in 1999. 97, they have a meeting in Prague. The next one is in Geneva. They kind of have, they try to link it to the UN, give it more official status, even though it wasn't linked to the UN. And then there's a really big gap. And 2004 is their third World Congress, and that takes place in Mexico City. And so I just want to also talk about the effect. So it's not just that they have 3 days of meeting, but there's an effect after they leave. And so there were a bunch of Mexicans that went to Prague, and they got really excited about the idea of the family. And they went back to Mexico, and they created this network called Red Familia, Family Network. And it's now one of the hugest networks promoting the family in Mexico. I think they're in 34 different provinces. And then they went to Carlson and said, let's have our program in Mexico. And so this is 2004. Bush is in full ascendancy, and for the first time ever, the World Congress starts to get support from governments. And this is a really big thing because, as you can see today, you have Salvini endorsing it. So in some ways, what's happening in Italy is sort of their complete and full ascendancy. They have arrived. And then so this starts percolating in 2004. And Bush endorses it, and then Vicente Fox is the president at the time. He sends his wife, his first lady. And then it's also at that same time where they start setting their sights on gay marriage. So it's an emerging issue in the United States, and you can see that the World Congress is very reactive. So they're not just, our gains are an opportunity for them to push. And then after Mexico, they start targeting specific countries. So they set their sights on Russia, Ireland, the Philippines, and Argentina. And then by 2013, they firmly established these strong ties to Russia. And you see this because this is the year that Russia introduces their anti-LGBT propaganda law. And there's a lot of literature right now about the World Congress of Family members who were supportive in developing that legislation. And so in terms of how we think about organizing, and a lot of the speakers have already given some suggestions, there's always been controversy with the World Congress of Families. And so the success has been when civil society calls them out for being anti-LGBT. And this happened again in Italy, where Tajani, the European parliamentary president, he was originally on the agenda, he got a lot of heat, and then he removed himself. So I think these are sort of they're small actions, but they're significant because what it does is it delegitimizes the World Congress of Families. I'm going to talk really quickly about the World Congress of Family. I'm out of time, or 1 minute? Huh? Okay. Okay, so just quickly, Madrid, 2012. After that, they said, we're really looking at Spain to be at the nexus of organizing anti-abortion, anti-LGBT with Latin America and Europe and the United States. And that's when Citizen Go first forms. And they have now expanded all over the world. They have a strong, and I don't know if everybody here knows what Citizen Go is, but it's a sort of a cyber network. So they have petitions, but they also do really aggressive advocacy. And I'm just going to end quickly on their work in Africa, because I think it's very relevant. They recently opened an office there last year in Kenya. It's headed by this woman, Ann Kioko. She's very young. She's actually here right now. She's speaking today. And what she and her organization did is that there's a, Marie Stopes International provides legal abortions in Kenya. Abortion is very restricted, so that's the political context for it. And then they went after MSI and said that they were doing their work illegally. And as a result, in December of 2018, so a couple months ago, the Kenyan government stopped them from doing services. And so they were eventually reinstated. But the point is that this very small organization, because it's really just this one woman running it out of Kenya, was able to destabilize, a legitimate health organization. So again, this is the impact that the World Congress has, not just in Europe and the United States, but now it's moving into Africa. So just to sort of wrap it up, the way forward, I think what I would say is to, continue monitoring and following and questioning the work. And continuing to forge diverse national and transnational networks to respond, and also understand that what they're going after is really, the global mechanisms that we have and human rights accountability. And so what we need to do is to continue to strengthen these mechanisms, because that's what they're trying to erode. And as Clementina mentioned, cross-issue solidarity is really key. So they're not mono-focused on abortion and LGBT rights, but they're using the mantle of the family to go after a whole host of other issues. And so it's to our benefit to think broadly, and I would even say think as broadly as the issue of preserving democracy, because really that's what they're trying to erode at the end. So thanks very much.